Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my mock reads video for 2025 fantasy releases. I started these mock reads videos as a response to the Goodreads Choice Awards doing away with the original first round of their awards where everyone gets to write in what they would like to nominate. I think that was just too crazy for Goodreads, especially when the favorites were already pretty much known from, I guess, the most shelved books and, the highest rated books and so forth. But I don't read a lot of front list, and the front list I read doesn't tend to be buzzy. That's not usually what I gravitate to, although sometimes it is. So I decided to do mock reads on my own to just pick out books in various genres that interest me to read throughout the year, stopping this month in October so that I could get up a sort of tier ranking blog post before the Goodreads Choice Awards start in November. And who knows, maybe some of these picks will actually make it into the big leagues. We'll never know. Well, we probably have some idea, given trends. But anyway, I have picked out 5 releases that came out in 2025. And of those 5, I have designed to read 3 of them this year. And then the rest I'll read in 2026. And in fact, I'm already 2/3 of the way into my reading list, which is a good thing, considering we are in October, my deadline month. The first book I read was definitely my favorite. It is The RAGPICKER KING by Cassandra Clare. This is the sequel to The Sword Catcher, which came out a couple of years ago. This is her first foray into adult epic fantasy. And this is a Jewish-inspired tale taking place in the city of Castellane, which is loosely inspired by medieval Venice. And so there's this kingdom in Castellane that's ruled by, a Gentile community, but there's also a ghetto called the Salt in Castellane where the Jewish coded characters live. And we are primarily following 2 characters. One of them is the sword catcher named Kel, and this is basically a bodyguard and body double for the Crown Prince Kel. And the second character we're following is Lynn, who is a female physician from the Salt, which is rare enough in and of itself. She also is the granddaughter of an advisor, the, singular advisor of her people to the king. And so she starts to, in the last book, she got embroiled in these politics with these characters like Kel and Connor. There was an engagement that happened with a neighboring kingdom. There was an assassination. There's possible war on the horizon. That's a large part of where we open in on the RAGPICKER King. And the RAGPICKER King also is a character who comes from the underworld of Castellane. And kind of, keeps the street things running and is a bit of a spy too, and so very useful when it seems like they need to figure out, who assassinated a princess in the last book and all of that stuff, and, who's on whose side. Because there's a lot of politics in the wings. It's a very high political book. I really enjoyed it. And there was also a Salt-centric story having to do with the Jewish coded characters, where their exiled king called the Exilarch has to visit them because Lynn actually decided that she was going to proclaim herself the goddess reborn, mostly to save the people she loves rather than because she actually believes it, but now she has to go through the gauntlet. So yeah, this just fired on all cylinders for me. I love the Jewish coded content. I liked the characterization. The world was rich. There were plenty of characters. It just was a very immersive read for me. The second book I read, I actually just completed, is While the Dark Remains by Joanna Ruth Meyer, which is somewhat a similar situation in that Joanna Ruth Meyer also has a legion of YA fantasy behind her, and this is her first foray into adult fantasy. But spoiler alert, this one definitely didn't work as well for me and has not toppled the RAGPICKER King from its throne. But this takes place in an epic fantasy world as well, in this peninsula of a secondary world where a bunch of, or 3 particular different cultural groups are battling it out for control of this land. And the most magical group, the Ilaria, were the ones that kind of were there first, and they buried something deep in a mountain, a weapon based off of, you know, the magical god system of this world. That's sort of the background. Our main character, Brenya, was actually is a Scaran girl, one of the kingdoms, who was a captive of the Tenebrian king. She actually was a captive child performer. She did acrobatics and lived in a cage and was there for 8 years until she was able to escape. She saved her crown princess of the Scaran kingdom, and then the Scarans decided to use her in part of their scheme to send a fake delegation to Tenebrius to barter peace, but actually they're just stalling for time until their army comes. And then a lot of the other political players are there as well to sort of barter out the future, also especially with what's going to happen with this secret magical weapon. And then, you know, secrets unfold and drama and all of that, and there's a little bit of a love triangle too, although it mostly comes into a, you know, a straight-on one-on-one romance. This, to me, I think a lot of the characterization and the way that the world building unfurled still felt very YA to me and a little bit more shallow than I was hoping. There was also a little bit of a gotcha moment reveal, which is just totally not my thing. But I am very taken with Joanna Ruth Meyer in general, so I'm definitely going to keep going with her books, maybe even the sequel to this book, and just hope that, you know, we'll be on a different trajectory for that one. We shall see. I'll go in chronological order with the next 3 books. They were all released in September. The first one came out on September 9th. It is The Maiden and Her Monster by Maddie Martinez. This is another epic fantasy Jewish retelling, which kind of is a retelling of the Golem myth from Prague, where a rabbi is able to create a man of clay to protect the community. In this story, the golem is a female golem, and this is a sapphic romance when the main character comes across her. The main character, I think, is trying to clear her mother's name, maybe, and the golem wants to go to the major city where the rabbi who created her is in danger. Another book this really is a whole lot like is this one. This is The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reed, her first debut novel, which I still own. I think these books sound very similar. It's about a Jewish-coded girl in a anti-Semitic world, taken out of or leaving her village and going through a spooky woods and meeting a love interest, and then having to go to a city to interact with the Jewish-coded characters and I guess other political realities. Although I've heard that people aren't as thrilled with this book. I think they wanted to stay longer in the spooky forest part, and this one moves more quickly, I think, to the city. But for me, I'm certainly most intrigued by how she's going to thread the Jewish influences into the book, and so I'm eager to give it a go. Then on September 16th, we have Among the Burning Flowers by Samantha Shannon, the next installment in her Priory of the Orange Tree saga, which I absolutely love, even though apparently I don't think I know the overarching name of the series. Priory of the Orange Tree was the first one, sort of, I think, the most distinct St. George and the Dragon gender-bent retelling. But yeah, we're in this sprawling epic fantasy world. There's Eastern coded and Western coded and other slightly coded cultures. There's different types of dragons, kind of good and bad dragons that live in both areas. The dragons, the bad dragons in particular, came out at a couple of really ominous times and wreaked a lot of havoc and destruction. And this one actually is a lot shorter. The other 2 books of this series are sprawling epic fantasies that, you know, we have lots of, well, main characters, and we spend a lot of time really getting in close with them. I'm not sure if we can actually handle this in like 300 pages. I'm not quite sure how this is going to feel different, but the world, you know, and how she writes it has already sucked me in, so I'm very excited. And finally, coming out on September 30th was The Sovereign by C.L. Clarke, which is the conclusion of her epic fantasy trilogy. I'll just go ahead and look up the name of that overarching title. It is Magic of the Lost is the name of that trilogy. So there definitely are magical influences in this book, but it also is a metaphor or a look at colonialism and sort of loosely based off of France colonizing Algeria. And our main character, Tiffane, was a conscripted soldier from the Algerian coded nation who had to fight for Baudelaire, which was the French coded nation. Although when she was sent back to quell unrest in her native homeland, she had a bit of a political reawakening. And it helped along by the fact that the heir apparent of Baudelaire, Luca, is somebody who also wants to put the empire aside a little bit, or at least barter more equality or peace. And it's a journey they both go on in these two books. And there's obviously also a lot of political upheaval that happens where Tiffane's nation gains some independence, and Luca becomes, in the last book, I believe, the emperor or empress. So this book, I think, is about, you know, seeing how it's all going to march on into the future and how we're going to leave this sprawling political tale. And yeah, there are issues of in this series about how magic works, and that Baudelarians are very anti-magic and suppress their own magic and also suppress the magic of their colonial states. And so Tiffane's nation is starting to, you know, reawaken and reuse their magic, and we'll have to see, I guess, if Baudelaire will do the same. Not quite sure, but yeah, I'm looking forward to, you know, rounding out and completing this epic story. And that about covers it for me now. I will leave the Goodreads links for all 5 of these books listed down below, as well as reviews for the 2 books I've read. And I've also made 3 other videos throughout this year for my other genres I'm covering for mock reads, which include historical fiction, general/literary fiction, and science fiction. So all in all, I've had 20 books that, you know, of front list that have caught my fancy, which is a lot for me. I really mostly do read backlist, but I'm excited to get to some of these books this year and the rest of them next year. And speaking of what I'm reading, expect me back here on this channel in the near future for my next Am Reading video. Stay tuned for that. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.